Brought to you by Raising the Vibe, a nonprofit organization supporting the growth of conscious communities.
Welcome to Finding Your Gifts and Higher Purpose with Raising the Vibe. I appreciate you being here and bearing with us on this crazy morning. Anyway, felt the need to kind of share what I've been doing. I've had a kind of an expedited wake-up journey in this whole new world of spirituality. And there's a lot of tools that really help me, and I wanted to share them with you. Right now, they're on a platform called Social Chrysalis, and Stephen Donaco is on the call here, and he's going to talk a little bit about it at the end. But Social Chrysalis was a website, or is a website, that's based on the work of Barbara Marx Hubbard around conscious evolution. And on this platform, I have interviewed several experts and a lot of the tools to help people awaken to their divine blueprint. And I'm going to just scratch the surface really with these, but wanted to go ahead and share with you some of these wonderful tools. And we have some experts here in the audience that can help share more information directly about these tools. So we're going to go a little bit through what's happened in my life, identity mapping, energy healing, and specifically specialized kinesiology, the Enneagram, human design, the gene keys, the Akashic Record, and we'll do a question and answer. Okay. So my journey started just 3 years ago as an artist, stay-at-home mom. But there are some things that happened in the field that could not be described as coincidences. Some kind of actually negative things that I couldn't understand in another way other than there must be another world that I don't understand. And something higher inside of me came down and asked these two questions were, is there some sort of interconnected field of energy that ties us together? And what are the elements in religions throughout all time and culture? And with those two questions, and with some trusty friends by my side, including Becker, who's on the call, I just went out to figure that out and started reading a bunch of books and was compelled to find my higher purpose. Like the one thing that kept egging me on was like, I have a higher purpose and I'm trying to figure that out. And with that, synchronicity started to occur. Like I got message from friends that you should start a book club. And when 3 people said I should start a book club, I really took heed and started a spiritual book club. Another thing that happened was I was on a walk with the dog. I went a different way than normal, and right in the middle of the sidewalk was a brochure with the mind-body connection. And it was just, you couldn't make that up. And I'm like, oh, mind-body is like a place here in Atlanta about the connection of the mind and the body. And with that, I made this big paradigm shift, that life is not a series of random events, but a conscious unfolding of greater awareness. And just because you can't detect something with your 5 senses doesn't mean it's not there. So I thought of the dog whistle and realized that the dogs can hear it, but I can't. It doesn't mean it's not there. It's just existing on a different frequency. So starting out with books like The Celestine Prophecy, which is really amazing. It's a fictional tale, but it has so much great wisdom about the insights. And that really kind of gave me an overview of what this world was. And then The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton, and The Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins, that really looked at the levels of consciousness, was really eye-opening for me. But what I found in a lot of conversations with most of the people in this world, that most of them didn't really happen upon this world gracefully. It usually like what I call with my daughter, the universal 2x4, getting hit in the head many times before you wake up into a different reality and a higher reality that you're here for a purpose. So most people honestly go through deep suffering before they get to the other end and see the light at the end of the tunnel. And then in this, I started having prophetic dreams and made a key connection. I had one of my good friends now, Darshana Patel. I had this dream that I needed to go see the senior teacher of Ra. She channeled the Ra, a collective, a spiritual collective in. And so I went to have a Reiki session with her and realized that we were partners on this journey, and we've stayed in touch ever since. So it's really following up on dreams that can give you powerful clues. And then I found it's kind of fun because life is really like a scavenger hunt, and you're just following the next clue. And I love the Frozen 2 movie where it says, do the next right thing. And that's what I've been trying to do. Like when you think too far in advance, it just gets mind-boggling. So you just wake up and what feels right. And I've really struggled with not overthinking things, but letting my intuition guide me. And that's been the biggest, I guess, learning on this path, is just really listening to my body and not trying to overthink things, because I do like to overthink things. So yeah, and once you start paying attention, you meet others to help you on your mission through the law of attraction. Like people just showed up to help start this nonprofit, Raising the Vibe. We had somebody come in and do the logo, Shannon Davis. We had someone help us with our website. We have people help with the visioning, the mission, vision, and values. So that's where this is where the magic happens, that when you're on your path, people come in to support you. And I met Dr. Dimitri, and he's been a wonderful speaker for us for the last year or so. So it's a beautiful thing once you kind of start aligning and realizing there's more out there, but you just have to start listening. The first thing I want to review is identity mapping. And I didn't specifically go through identity mapping on my journey, but I connected in with Susan Gannon, who is an identity mapping coach, and really resonated with some of the things that they're doing coaching-wise based on the book, The Identity Code by Larry Ackerman. And it goes through a series of questions. And this is kind of like on my social chrysalis side, I kind of have you write the story of your life. And this is a way to write the story of your life. But they go into depth, like, who am I? What makes me special? Is there a pattern to my life? Where am I going? What is my gift? Who can I trust? What is my message? And will life be rich? And rich means not in monetary sense, but just, positive and fulfilling. And then, let's see. So Susan, who's on the call, and we'll talk in a few minutes about identity mapping. She works with people to really do one-on-one coaching to really boil down what their life essence is, or basically their unique mantra. And she had a client named Millie, who was a nurse practitioner and was diagnosing people every 15 minutes. But she just felt like there was something missing in this work for her. Even though she liked helping people, she just didn't feel like she had enough time to get to know them individually. And to really care for them deeply. So her goal was to really find out what she could do and use all of her gifts. So she was frustrated with the traditional healthcare model. And through this work, she realized that her life force was loving resilience. And I think Susan actually puts this on a little rock, or a little, some totem that you can always have that says, I'm loving resilience, and that's who I am. And that became her guiding force. And then since then, she became an integrated oncology practitioner for her own company and is a speaker on alternative health. So with that, we've got Susan here, and wanted to just let you have the platform here and just talk a little bit about a few other things about identity mapping, and really how this can help you find your unique gifts and higher purpose. I think we need to unmute. Yeah.
Well, Rebecca, thank you for doing the right next thing. That was very difficult, and you did a great job. And I also want to thank Stephen for that collective breath. I don't think I could have gotten on without that. So that was really helpful. Thank you. If you could just go back to the questions, Rebecca.
Yeah.
Thank you. As Rebecca said, my name is Susan Gannon, and I help people discover their authentic self and awaken their purpose. And I have a company called Momentum for Growth. And I use this program called Identity Mapping. And as Rebecca mentioned, these are the 8 questions from the Identity Code that Larry Ackerman developed. Now, just for the sake of time, I'm just going to focus on 3 of them. And that is, what makes me special? Is there a pattern to my life? And what is my gift? Those are really the three questions that I use the most, and those are the pillars. I'm not going to get into each one, but can you go to the next slide, please,
Yeah.
Rebecca? So it's very easy for all of us to think that our accomplishments are who we are. But as most of us know, that's really only the surface. And it's really what's important. What's important is what's inside of us. Some people would call that our soul. Now, the paradox of the identity mapping is that there's something inside of us, our immutable soul, that never changes. And yet how we express that from decade to decade changes all the time. So what you look like at 20 is very different than what you might look like at 50. So that's really the identity paradox. And one way to get unstuck is to become very present and trust your own wisdom, just as Rebecca has done in this program. You know, it's so important to touch the truth, and that's really through your own experience and living your own purpose. And we can't trust somebody else's experience. Okay, so let's go to Millie, and Rebecca touched on this. Millie had a really transformative experience, and as Rebecca said, we created a mantra or a life force called loving resilience. And she was diagnosing people every 15 minutes and very unhappy that she couldn't experience her love and spirituality with her clients, and very frustrated with the traditional medical model. So she got in touch with her own fearlessness, her own resilience, and she understood the peace that she was bringing to her clients. So she started her own health and wellness company and was able to become an integrated oncology practitioner. And she learned that her gift was empowering others' health and well-being, and also helping other people develop their own resilience. So once she was able to go inside, then she could share what she was given. So that's it. Okay. And yes, and this is my contact information. I have the company Momentum for Growth. You can reach me at Susan@Momentum for Growth, and there's my website, Momentum for Growth.
And Susan, I know you have so I'm going to just, if there's any, I know you have a call at 11:30, is that correct? So I'm going to go ahead and, since you're still here, if there's anybody that has any questions regarding identity mapping, in case Susan has to get off before we get to the question and answer session at the end. Okay. If not, we'll see if she's around at the end, and then maybe something will come up. Thank you. Thank you so much, Susan, and appreciate your time with us today. All right. The next topic here is energy healing, and there's so many types of energy healing. Most people have heard of Reiki. I think that's probably the most popular, but there's something that I've experienced personally called specialized kinesiology, and just kind of walk this path with my dear friend Becca, who's on the call. So she was right with me when I was asking those questions to myself, and we were answering them together. And I remember just 3 years ago, or less than 3 years ago, asking Becca, do you believe in like meridians and chakras and energy? And she's like, yeah, I do, but I don't know much about it. And then lo and behold, she finds herself on the path of giving up her therapist license, meeting somebody serendipitously in an artist market, and said, my son was really helped by this method called specialized kinesiology. Nobody could help with his dyslexia or his ADD or whatever it was, and this really worked. And then so Becca found herself, she lives in Black Mountain right outside of Asheville, found herself getting trained in specialized kinesiology and realizing that it was so powerful that, after all these years of being a therapist, that talk therapy just couldn't do it when you really need to change the way the body's holding the trauma. So we've walked this path together, learning as we go. And I've had multiple energy sessions with Becca and with a lot of different energy practitioners, Reiki, all sorts of things, to help me really uncover all these layers that are programmed in me. And one specific layer that I was fascinated by was so you see how she's using muscle monitoring there in the photo. She basically, let me see if the next slide, but uses muscle monitoring to ask your body, because your body knows what's good for it and what's not. And so she was asking my body, well, where is this trauma located? And we'd actually go through my gene keys and try to figure out in my DNA report, and we cross-reference all of those. And she said, you've got something in the lung meridian, and there's something about anger at age 5, and it has to do, and then she'd go deeper, and it has to do with smell. I'm like, oh my gosh. And it just hit me like a ton of rocks that this was my parents smoking in the car, and the anger that I had because I couldn't use my voice. I'd be in the back of the car on these long road trips and just feel like I was suffocating. And I really put a lot of negative anger, and I couldn't really, as a kid, really release that. So I stored that in my body. And that actually, my body still thought that it had to fight off all the smoke, and it didn't turn off part of the DNA expression that I had to have all these histamines in my system. So I was living with histamines my whole life because of the unprocessed anger and unprocessed stuff from my childhood trauma of the smoke in the car. So that's one powerful example. And after that, and Becca's helped with my allergies, so many different levels. But basically, your brain is a biocomputer. We come in here as a circuit board. The first 7 years, even in utero, a child absorbs via the delta and theta brainwave states information from their environment in order to help them to adapt. Our subconscious programming and stress are like apps on the phone. This is what Becca said in the program here, that the more apps you have running and constantly refreshing in the background, the more energy is siphoned off from your battery or life force. So the key is to just deprogram that stress and the things that aren't serving you anymore. So we create a program in the brain, our belief system, and we often will put this in our body, and this is programmed out of fear, and this gives us our ego identity. And again, the body's reacting like this is happening in real time. It doesn't realize that the smoking isn't happening anymore, and my body needs to just go back and reset. And this pulls trauma out of your body, and it gives you a clear connection to your essence or higher self. When you can get rid of all that fear and all that stuff blocking your energy, you can get much more clear connection to your higher self. Again, it uses the subtle subconscious energy through muscle monitoring, the biofeed mechanism, and she uses acupressure touch points to enable the energy to start flowing again. So here's Becca. She is right outside of Asheville. She does remote sessions if you're interested. Here's her information, and I'm going to let Becca talk specifically about stuff that I missed in this presentation and how you can really find your unique gifts and higher self with this modality. So Becca.
Yeah, thank you. And it's been a joy to walk with you on the journey. It's been fun to watch you blossom. And myself as well. I mean, there's a synergy when we're all working together to transform ourselves. And that's what I actually love about this work, is that the joy of it is to watch a person discover themselves possibly for the first time, like their true self, without these layers that they have known themselves with previously that flood the system with all sorts of past, future realities, because the past being all the programming, like you said and shared in your own story, is such a beautiful example, because the reality of us living as a multidimensional being in this physical body, the brain doesn't know the difference between the past and the present. So when that physiology gets triggered, the old 5-year-old Rebecca gets to run your adult life. And the background that I have as a therapist joins this modality so sweetly, because I can gently hold space and guide someone to that youngest, innocent, pure self that has just been veiled. I call it veils of stress. And those veils are just hiding that little one. And it's getting that person, whoever is receiving this healing work, in touch with themselves. So I'm just holding the space, but ultimately, I believe that healers lead people to their own self to be healed, and I enjoy watching a person fly away and watching them with that highest self and that in touch with how to tend for their hearts, how to be present with themselves. With each session, whatever a person needs, the old patterning goes away because they have been a witness to themselves in space-time, in that quantum field, with another observer, with somebody else holding that space with them. And the brain can recircuit, the body recircuits new information, which is safety. I am safe. I'm safe. And I don't have to live by that old program patterning, like a conditioned response anymore. I can be in my more authentic adult self, and make this decision, be in this conflict, be in this relationship with this person, offer myself presence, offer them presence in a new way. So it's so layered. And the joy of this work is sometimes almost, I feel like I watch people shake hands with themselves or give themselves a hug for the first time. And that's their youngest, usually littlest self that is so pure. And that's what I love about this work, is that it feels pure to me. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Becca. That was lovely. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. And then we'll do some question and answer at the end. So I think if you want to put, any questions you have in the chat, Kristen will start sharing those, and we can ask the experts or me about any of this. So be thinking of your questions, and we'll get to that at the end. The next program we want to talk about is the Enneagram. And this is an ancient psycho-spiritual system of classifying personality types based on a 9-pointed star-like figure. This is Dr. Dimitri talks about this in the Social Chrysalis program. He actually has written a book about it, so I'll let him get into more details. But we see a circle, and the 9 points represent the different personality types or the psychological motivations. And you might want to take down this or take a screenshot of these tests. So the one is a free test at truity.com that I thought was very helpful. There's another one, Enneagram Worldwide, that does cost $10 at last we checked. And you can really figure out which point you are. So with me, I got all different ones. Every time I took it 3 times, and I took the brief test 3 times, and I got all different ones. And so somebody said, well, who were you before age 25? And so before age 25, I guess I was an 8, which was really how I look at the world. And I felt I needed to control the world to be safe, was the bottom line of an 8. And the high side is you get to be, the high side is a leader characteristic. But I've been around the whole circle many times at different times in my life. But it's really helpful to understand that we all have these core wounds and these core gifts as well. And you can have wings, and you can be all different types. So it's not like you're just one. You're a mix of all these, but usually you're a primary type. And it's usually before age 25 you will know who you are to pick your primary type. So the Enneagram, we believe, originated in about 2 AD by the Desert Fathers and Mothers to find meaning in life, to identify with the gods and avoid the demons. And they looked at it really as the low sides, and there were the 7 deadly sins and plus the 2 modern ones. But again, these points also have the holy or self-actualized sides to them as well. They describe a number of human conditions or personality types, Again, the circle represents wholeness, or you can think of you've heard of the hero's journey, or the prodigal son that leaves home, goes down, realizes, has his life, and then makes his way back home to wholeness. The triangle symbolizes a blending of polarities, and the six-pointed star is the number of creation. And you'll see all the different, in this diagram, they talk about like a category. Some diagrams have different names, but you have the peacemaker, the reformer, the helper, the motivator, the artist, the thinker, the loyalist, the generalist, and the leader. Those are more the high sides of the types. Again, each type defines how we think, feel, and act at a background level. It's a belief system of how we adapt in the world to have our basic needs of love and security and self-worth met. And it teaches us how we are organized individually and collective, and how we move around the circle to activate our inherent gifts. You're not just stuck at one point, but you're actually either moving around in a proactive or life-giving form, or you can actually go backwards. If you're an unhealthy version of yourself, you can kind of go back around the circle the other way. So with that, I've got Dr. Nicholas Dimitri. He's a holistic psychiatrist, healer, author, and teacher in Atlanta. And he's been connected to me and Raising the Vibe for a couple years now. We're so happy to have him on. He's done many talks for us. He first talked about his book, The Divine Partnership, was our very first speaker in our Raising the Vibe speaker series. Then talked about the Enneagram. So we have a video of the Enneagram, which we'll probably, once we have the bandwidth, put it up on our YouTube channel. And then most recently, in February, he talked about the truth about 5G. That is on End Your Health. That is on our YouTube channel, Raising the Vibe, altogether, Raising the Vibe, if you want to check that out. But with that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Dimitri to say a few more words about the Enneagram.
Thanks, Rebecca. I guess I'd like to start by just saying that some time ago, there was a friend of mine told me this story, a spiritual teacher, well-known now in India, who hugged millions of people all over the world. And her disciples got together and they were discussing what's the greatest sin, what's the greatest shortcoming or falling. And of course, she was asking the question, and one person, chimed in anger, another chimed in lust, another chimed in fear, greed. It went on and on, these 7, quote, deadly sins or negative energies we were talking about. And she looked at him and she said, not really. And everyone was shocked and everyone's wondering, so what is it? And she went on to say, it's not using the divine gifts or developing the divine gifts that you've been given coming into the world as a spiritual being. And so in a way, the Enneagram is about that. It's like the whole concept when you say social chrysalis and imagining caterpillar, cocoon, butterfly. It's really about that in essence, that we all start our lives, at least in part, as caterpillars. And the world itself does that, as we know. And we go through different experiences, woundings, traumas, and this creates these different perceptual shifts in us that make us look at the world in a more limited way. And once we examine ourselves and we move into that cocoon state, which is kind of looking within, the way I like to think of it, we start to see beyond those clouds, those misperceptions, and we're able to then just experience or realize our gifts and how we can contribute to the world. And I think it's a lot like if you have a cloudy day, you can't see the sun, but the sun's always there. So in this manner of speaking, the soul comes in with a certain intention, let's say, and that intention is to experience, realize, and develop some capacity, some gift that it has, and bring that into the world. So a lot of my work revolves around that. I do teach the Enneagram, but I also like to informally just talk to people and get a sense of, where they are, what part of them is still in the caterpillar, what part is the cocoon, what's moving out into the world. and try to help guide them so that they really find their own unique gifts and their sense of purpose. And so I think that for me is what the Enneagram is. So we've got these virtues, we call them, or holy ideas in the Enneagram, which are the higher energies. That's kind of like the butterfly aspect of your being. And we're all on a journey in this way. We're all on that incredible journey moving through these different stages of transformation. And that's what the Enneagram really spoke to me about many years ago, and that's how I use it.
Thank you. Perfect, thanks. And I think you'll be around at the end if we have any specific questions about that. Sure. Thanks, Dr. Dimitri. So the next topic is human design. And this was really powerful to me because, again, following, friends like my friend Sherry Bowles-Rogers, who's a member of Raising the Vibe, she brought up, well, have you had your human design done? She said, I had mine done, and I realized I wasn't getting very far in my business because I realized, through my human design that, she said I was a generator and I'm not meant to initiate things. So there's a way that the world is, like the universe works, and we're all kind of designed. We have our unique blueprint that's in our DNA. And so I was very intrigued with human design. And this was one of the first things that really, knowing my human design, got me motivated to live my purpose and that to really take the lead, because I am a manifestor, to start Raising the Vibe, start the book club, turn it into a nonprofit, because I'm here to initiate. So this was so key for me to know who I am as a soul. So this is my profile. It's very, I'm just going to scratch the surface because it's very complex. But again, I'm a manifestor. What I'm here to experience is peace. When I'm not in alignment, I'm in anger, and I've experienced that. And you have an inner authority. Mine happens to be ego manifested authority, which is will center. The right angle cross of the Sphinx, which is really my purpose, and kind of the key things I'm here to do. And it's based on, you can pull your own chart, and I'll get to the next level, through these tools like humandesignamerica.com and Jovian Archive are good ones. And you can just put your birth date, your time and place, and pull your chart, and you'll get a body graph like this. So I don't have a lot of time to go into the details, but on the right is the red is your subconscious programming that came in, before you're born, or some say 90 days before birth. And then the black on the right side is your outward, or your conscious program. So you have unconscious programming and conscious programming. So human design was a transmission that was like a major download to a guy named Ra Uru in 1987. And he just basically channeled this in from the universe. It's based on astrology and the ancient Chinese I Ching, or the Book of Changes. And those are the hexagrams, around the 64 hexagrams. And it posits that humans are imprinted at birth with their outward personality, and 90 days before birth with their unconscious design. And it might sound a little weird or out there to you if you've not kind of experienced astrology, but once you do your design, it will become very clear, like, how did they know that about me? And it just rings true. And it's just so affirming to have on paper things that you knew about yourself, but now you can get confirmation of, oh, that's why I'm like that. And there's like one of the channels in here that says, tell me all your secrets, basically. So I have a channel that's it's basically my energy field that basically says, hi, I'm trustworthy, tell me all your secrets. And people are always just sharing their innermost things. I think a lot of you on the call have the same thing. And it's just, but that's in my energy field. It's in my human design. You can tell that with the channels. But just briefly, there's 4 major energy or aura types: generators, projectors, manifestors, and reflectors. And the chart over to the side is not a generator chart because it wouldn't look like my manifestor chart there, but it just left the same visual. Generators are the most common type, and they encompass 70% of the population. I think it's about half manifesting generators and half generators. They have an open and enveloping aura, which is drawing to them what is right. They're basically yin beings here to wait to respond, and they're able to sustain work. And the generator is really about dealing with their downside is frustration and their positive side is satisfaction. So a generator is here to use their energy and life force, but they really want to make sure that they're satisfied and they're engaged in what they're deciding to tune into. A projector has an aura that's absorbing and penetrating, taking in a lot of information and then focusing in on one person. So my son is a projector. It's 20% of the population, and they're really guides to humanity. They're really dive deep into the other. So they're looking at other people. They're really diving deep into a subject. But the strategy for the projector is really wait for the invitation, because in the program on my social chrysalis, the woman who I interviewed for human design, Karen McMullen, talked about the projector being like, it's a like they're the surgeon, and if you don't want the surgery, you are going to be really upset with that projector diving deep into your stuff, because it's like, but if you invite them and you are really wanting the surgery, like if you need a tumor removed, then they're your best friend. So projectors have to really be careful about making sure they're invited in, because they do penetrate deeply and they need to make sure that what they have to say is actually wanted by the person. A manifestor is 9% of the population, often visionaries and here to make an impact. They're able to start things and manifest. They're able to really create reality without having to go to others to initiate. So just an easier time getting stuff done. And I think that's why I realized I was so action oriented in my life. I really just love to get stuff done. And it's easier for me maybe than some people. And it helps others initiate new phases in their lives. So their aura is repelling, saying, get out of my way. But Karen did say that, you can have a sweet personality, but my aura might be saying, get out of my way. Basically, as a manifestor, I'm attracting people into my space that are with me, and the other people will be repelled. So I've experienced that, and Lauren can talk a little bit further about that. But and then just 1% of the population are the reflectors. And I haven't met one. I think Lauren has met somebody who's a reflector, but there are no defined centers. So if you looked at this chart over to the side, none of the centers would be colored in. And they're here to sample and reflect back. They're really a barometer for society, and they want justice. So they're the big mirror for you. They're just reflecting back everything. So with that, I would like to introduce Lauren Checkanow. She is a key member of our Raising the Vibe team here in Atlanta, who I just met recently through serendipity. And she is a human design consultant. And with that, I'd love to invite Lauren to unmute and talk a little bit about how human design can really specifically help you find your unique gifts and higher purpose.
Thanks, Rebecca. That was a great overview, and thanks for having me here. Yeah, like many of you, I've sort of always been a soul seeker, and I always sort of felt that there was something wrong with me. There was something missing, that in just some ways, like something was wrong. And then finding human design really let me know that I wasn't broken. In many ways, I was already following my design, which is of a manifesting generator. And what I was doing was letting external conditioning, which we also talk about in human design as the not self-talk, just sort of dictate how I felt about myself. So I absolutely love human design. I find it an amazing tool for self-compassion, for self-awareness, for compassion for others. It's really a tool for like knowing yourself, learning to love yourself. We're all perfectly designed, and really stepping into your full potential. So for me, it's an opportunity to reconnect with what really, brings somebody joy, and release all that external conditioning, all the comparison that's so prevalent in our culture today. And there's lots and lots of areas in human design where we talk about, innate strengths and our natural gifts and our opportunities for intuitive wisdom. There's areas called the incarnation cross, which Rebecca mentioned, which is really a place where it's not that you do something, but more that you step into your purpose. It's sort of like your purpose unfolds for you when you're doing all these things correctly and following your your design. There's channels, which are where two different centers connect, and those are major themes in our life, major areas for strength, and where our gifts really show up. And then there's a couple other things in human design. There's really, because there's this astrology and astronomy component, there's areas where there's Saturn return, which is a big cycle for people. There's, things that happen at different points in your life, and you can really see where those show up. And, as we evolve as humans, as we evolve through our lifetime, there's different opportunities to dig into different areas of human design. So I love it, and I'm so happy to share, more about it with people. It really, for me, provides that tangible evidence to make those mindset shifts. So I love that. And it can provide, incredible healing for you. It really can provide harmony and understanding family dynamics, when people come from different perspectives, and letting you know that somebody's not doing something to you. It's their design, and just how you work together to sort of see things differently can be really life-changing in a family.
Thank you, Lauren. And here's Lauren's information. She's available to do these, once you pull your profile, if you can pull it or she can pull it, and she's able to have a personal reading that can really help you dive into it. You can't really tell by just pulling your chart from the website what this means. So you're going to need some advice, and Lauren's really good at understanding how this can affect, how your relationships, how you're meant to, to go about your life, and really your life purpose. By looking at that incarnation cross specifically, I think that's very helpful to know what you're here to do. So please contact Lauren if you would like to just dive into human design. Thank you, Lauren. Whoops. All right. Go to the next one. And then the next one is the gene keys. Let me get the screen back. So human design really, so the gene keys were the next iteration from human design. So Richard Rudd, let me pull that, let me just get my, here. Richard Rudd was an expert or studied human design, and then he also had kind of a channeling in of the gene keys, which was taking the human design one step forward. And it's really, unlocking the hidden purpose in your DNA. It's, again, based on your birthday, time, place, and you can determine your soul purpose, your gifts, your emotional challenges, and the ultimate expression of your life. So I would highly recommend that you take this website down, www.genekeys.com, and you can pull a profile, and it actually will tell you some, just for free, give you some basic ideas of your life purpose, what your life's mission is, and some of your key gifts. But just briefly, I'll tell you a little bit about mine. I'll go into this first. So the Gene Keys is really a map of our humanity and our divinity. It's a language in which we can see the spectrum of consciousness in 64 flavors. And we have, to evolve, we need to allow, accept, and embrace the shadow to release the gift and embody the city. So if you'll see here, the bottom sphere is your life's purpose. So you have a low side at the bottom, which is division, and you have a gift, which is guidance. And this is my personal one. Everybody's is going to be different. And my purpose here at the highest level is virtue. And really what this means is guiding people. And it's in the I Ching of the army, which is gathering people. And on the low side, it's really the hierarchical army of people and being the authoritarian leader. On the high side, it's really being a consensus builder and guiding in a circular format, just stating the word, but to really bring people along. And so they don't really need, so you create leaders and you're not wanting to keep people in the victim mentality. Anyway, that's a little complex, but my life's work is unity at the highest level, but my shadow side is dislocation. So I'm here to guide people to unity, and the gifts are in green. So if once I get through my shadows, which are the Venus sequence here, like some of the low points are like, I need to surrender to divine will or I'll be exhausted. And that's actually happened to me. Like I run, and I want to do so much, but unless I just relax and allow, I'm going to get chronic fatigue syndrome, which I've been on the verge of doing that. So you kind of have to work through your shadows to get to your gifts, or to your vocation. And my highest vocation is peace. And you'll see that mirrored in my chart as being a manifestor. I really want peace. And I'm in the line of philanthropy, which is line number 6, which is really, helping others, building them up and creating peace. And so these are this is kind of complex, but these are programming partners. I have a 1 and a 2. The 1 is the absolute masculine creation, the whole complete life force. And the 2, which is the opposite of that, they work together, is the feminine, which is the receptive. So it's the 1 and the 2 working together in my primary gene keys. Again, yours are going to be different. So, and gene keys use the path of contemplation. So there's a whole book you can get and read about all of your gene keys. But the idea is it's the middle path. It's not the yin path, which is more meditation, and it's not the yang path, which is really like yoga and extra outward things. It's the middle, which is contemplation, using both the right and the left brain. Again, so we go from the low frequencies to the high, and that's really going from fear to love. So when you start understanding your shadows, accepting them, and evolving, you can kind of move into these higher gift levels, or at some point the city will actually drop down. The SIDDHI are really complete freedom states, and then that kind of just drops in when you've done your work, and basically, like what Becca said, pulled out your trauma. So as a collective, we're shifting into the gift frequency from the victim state, and then many on a spiritual path are already there. So with that, I don't have an expert to talk about that, but I'll be happy to field questions and can get you to the right place if you're more interested in the gene keys. Again, it's just a glimpse at what it can offer you. It's so much complexity in it, but I'm happy to talk to you guys about that further, or send you some other experts. The next topic is the Akashic Record, and I'm not sure how many people have heard of that, but it's basically the energy database of all knowledge for all souls for all time. And people who can read the Akashic Record see it in different ways. It's really going into a deep meditative state, or even not so deep, but sometimes it'll visually show up for them, like or they'll hear it as if somebody's speaking to them. They're experiential and energetic. But you can also get particular data from a particular lifetime, or learn about your soul connections. And it really it helps you understand why you're here, because it looks at you as a totality, as a multidimensional being. Again, like what we talked about before, there's a difference between your soul and your personality. And there's different names for this. Like the essence inside is like your soul, the thing that's not going anywhere with your ego identity, your higher self. And in comparison, your personality is what you've chosen as a soul to express in this particular lifetime. We can choose different genders to experience the difference, but often key aspects of your energy, like leadership or extroversion, carry over from lifetime to lifetime, because that's a part of your soul essence. And so your soul journey helps you understand your gifts, your strengths, and your purpose. As a soul, we've been in other worlds way longer than we've been on Earth, most of us anyway, and our challenges here are small compared to what your soul knows. Like once you dive deep into your higher self, you can really unlock the gifts that you've accumulated over many lifetimes. So I had a Akashic reading done by Susan Shire, and she was interviewed on the Social Chrysalis module. And she's written several books: Soul Mastery, Soul Radiance, Soul Reunion. She does private sessions, intuitive counseling. So if you want to take down her information, if you're interested in getting a Akashic Record read, I think there's a lot of people that do that now. It's been more and more mainstream. And if this is brand new information to you, I'm happy to chat in the question and answer, section at the end. And again, some people might find this hard to believe. Just if it's something that doesn't resonate with you, just put it in the parking lot and maybe later you can come back to it. It's like, oh, that Akashic Record thing, it doesn't resonate right now, but maybe I'll come back to that. So it's just raising the vibe is about basically raising consciousness, which is opening the lens of your camera so you can see greater and greater perspectives in the world versus a narrow point of view. But that's what I've been trying to do for 3 years anyway, is just kind of open up to a whole other world. So I wanted to talk about, again, social chrysalis, and I think I can get, I don't know if it's, I was going to dive into the actual platform, but I think I lost it. I'll try to do that. But in the meantime, I'm going to have Stephen Donaco talk a little bit about social chrysalis and his inspiration for creating it. So, Stephen.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. Happy to be here. So I give you the short version of the story. I was invited to work with Barbara Marx Hubbard over the last about 18 months, actually, of her life. And if you're not familiar with Barbara, Barbara Marx Hubbard is essentially considered to be the mother of the field of conscious evolution. She had begun her own spiritual journey just through this process of being curious about what it was about humanity that causes us to evolve. And in particular, the event for her that caused her to really dive deep and devote her life to this was World War II and the dropping of the atomic bomb. And Barbara Marx Hubbard her father is Louis Marx, who was the founder of Marx Toys, which was a huge toy company at the time. So she came from affluence, and her father actually knew Dwight Eisenhower, and Barbara had the opportunity as a young 20-year-old woman to meet President Eisenhower in the Oval Office. And she asked him, this is World War II had ended a few years previous. And Barbara asked President Eisenhower, like, what's the meaning of our newfound technological power, meaning like being able to split the atom? And she asked, what's the meaning of that power that's good? And President Eisenhower was stumped. He told her he didn't know. And that was what started Barbara Marx Hubbard on her journey. It's like, as conscious beings with this incredible intelligence, how can we use that power for good instead of for destruction? And that was basically the gist of Barbara's work through the rest of her life. And she made her transition last year at the age of 89. And I had the honor and just very fortunate to co-create the very last program of her life called the Evolutionary Ambassador Academy, where we brought together a group of people who were going to take Barbara's principles of conscious evolution and actually take them out into the world and practice them in a generative way and to inspire and to affect change. So after Barbara's transition, I had thought, well, there must be something more I do with this experience of working with her. And I had the inspiration to create this platform called Social Chrysalis, which is the tagline is co-creating evolution through action. So basically, the platform is a catalog of courses that teach the skills of conscious evolution and how to help support people in their showing up to contribute to, frankly, our choice as a humanity to either evolve or devolve. Which was all about Barbara's work. So Social Chrysalis launched officially on January 20th of this year. And it launched just right as this coronavirus situation we're in just burst open into the world. And I feel like that's no accident, because if there ever is a time to practice the principles of conscious evolution, we're certainly in the midst of it. So I'm grateful to Rebecca for showing up to create her course. And right now on the platform, there are about 10 courses. So, we continue to add more of them, but it's the purpose of the platform is really to, as I said, prepare people to take action. It's an action-oriented platform, preparing people to take action so that we may consciously evolve as a humanity. And that's a huge responsibility and a huge call. So my own goal and vision for Social Chrysalis is to play at least a very small role in helping people to be comfortable with that in some way and to build their confidence in doing so. So that's Social Chrysalis in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Appreciate that. And we'll have questions about that at the end if anybody has it. And finally, our last slide is who is raising the vibe. And yeah, so we started again as a spiritual book club with about 8 people around my table just 2 years ago, and started reading Power Versus Force. We came up with the idea of doing a Facebook group, and we have Raising the Vibe as a Facebook group. We now have Raising the Vibe, our nonprofit, as a Facebook page, so check that out. I post almost every day with little tidbits. And we started with monthly small group sessions, and we started with books, and then we just had different conversations and brought in experts around like breath work or the divine feminine. We then expanded to being a nonprofit and creating a speaker series. And before coronavirus, we were having about 4 to 5 speakers a year in the evening, and Dr. Dimitri being one of them, to just talk about topics that help you raise your vibration, to get out of your normal consciousness and to just break out of the box a little bit, to think of something new. But the whole point is to find your higher self, and the belief that in compassion and collaboration, and we don't have to be in this competitive model. So what brings joy to the human spirit is what we're all about. And so we now with the coronavirus, we started doing Zoom sessions twice a week. We did Power of 8, but we're now holding off on that until a specific request comes in, which is the Lynn McTaggart book around group meditation. You can look into that if you're interested. But every Wednesday, I facilitate a call that's called Change the World Together, and whoever shows up, shows up. We usually have from 4 to 10 people on there, and we bring up with whatever's coming up. We talk about like control and what that means. We talk about aligning with our own guidance, or Atlantis, whatever shows up for the time, about to help people expand their perspectives. And my daughter Kate is doing Friday Zoom circles, and these are going to be all on our website. You can just click into them with healing and meditation for the week. So she's been doing that, as we can't get together personally, but we want to at least get together virtually. And then we're still doing the speakers, but we're doing them online. So I'm going to see if I can get to the website here so you could see our brand new website. It's coming on. My computer's a bit slow. So happy to launch our new brand here. And then we have quotes from our speakers, Dr. Dimitri: "We are many and yet we are one. We are one in the many. The purpose of life is to wholeheartedly love and to be loved. Without inner peace, outer peace is impossible. Raising your vibration is the key to wholeness, health, and wealth." So this just launched this weekend. We will have some tools in here to help find yourself, heal yourself, and give of yourself. We have the speeches and the material and links, but we just need to get them put in there. Please check out the Thrivability stuff. One of our speakers, architect Peter Lombardi, has some unbelievable ideas about evolving beyond sustainability to just live in a completely thrivable community. And then check it out. We have our events you can register for. So I do hope that you will check us out, join Raising the Vibe. It's just $25 for the year if you're not already a member, just for $25 for the whole year, and then $75 if you're a business membership and want to be listed in our resource section here. So we have Social Chrysalis, and we're just trying to help spiritually awakening people come together and find tools, as well as helping spiritual businesses, kind of like an incubator her spiritual businesses. So I'm going to stop sharing screen at this point. See, we've got a few more people here, which is great. And want to open it up to questions at this point. You can either list it in the chat, raise your, we have a small group now because of our little Zoom bomb incident, but feel free to ask any questions.
Hey, it's Kristen. I wanted to ask Susan a little bit more about the identity mapping and whether that is it kind of like just talking through these concepts? Is it like a talk therapy process, or what? Could you share a little bit more about the process of identity mapping?
I think actually Susan had to go. She had an 11:30 call. So I will tell you a little bit about that. So it's really like it's almost like therapy. So she gives you homework. So she'd have a consultation with you, and then and she'd really work with you. So what is the purpose of my life? Whatever these questions are, and she'd pick, maybe she wouldn't go through all 8 questions, but she'd probably pick about 3. And what makes me special? And she'd have people like do homework and journal, and then she'd come back and they just go through like a therapeutic, or consulting practice to really get to the essence once they go through all these tools. So I don't know if that answers your question, Kristen, on that.
Yep. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hi, Rebecca. Good morning. This is Simone. Maria just sent me the invite. I met you at one of the seminars at Jackie's house. How are you?
Oh, great. Thanks for joining. Glad you found our new link, and able to get on.
So, first of all the presenters have been wonderful, and everything is so interesting. I want to do everything. But it does remind me a little bit about Dr. David Hawkins' book, Letting Go, when he says, he tried everything. So I don't know if it's a question for you or for anybody here, but is there an overlap somewhere that, we try all these things, and then how do we get to an answer? And I know Dr. Demetri, we had a session so it's amazing, but at the same time, it can be a bit overwhelming.
Yes. Yeah, it certainly can. And that's really just, I think, using your intuition about which one of them is calling to you at the moment. And, again, I would encourage you to I have there's 9 hours of content, and you can just pick and choose. You can go through each one at your own pace, and you might just be diving into, I want to learn about identity mapping, and you'll have little segments of Susan talking about that. And then you might I want to jump to human design. So it just depends on where you're going. And so what I did was dive into each of these when my intuition was calling me, and it can be overwhelming. So again, I think you just have to listen to your heart and feel what's calling me right now, and what do I want to dive into now, and then where it leads. So Joey, the raising, so there is in participants, there should be, if you go to, Kristen, is it, so
Yeah,
the raising the hand feature is where?
If you click on participants, Joey, we're small enough. Why don't you just go ahead and
we're just gonna speak up if you want to unmute and ask a question.
Okay, yeah, this is for Dr. Nick. I was wondering if there's any vibration, sound, frequency that's your favorite for the virus and for 5G.
That's a great question. Actually, yes. There's F sharp is a tone that's considered high heart, and it's connected to the thymus and the immune system. And I think that's a good one on that level. But also, I highly recommend people to get or at least find a way to connect with the Schumann wave resonances, the 7.83 hertz resonances that help protect us. It's really the beat of the earth, so to speak. So whether that comes through, listening to things like ocean waves, rivers, or simply having a generator that emanates those waves and tones, I think it can be helpful.
Would you say that frequency again? What was that?
So it's F sharp is the tone.
Yeah, I
F
got that
sharp.
one.
And the Schumann wave frequencies resonate like 7.83 hertz.
7.83?
7.83 approximately. So it's kind of like a alpha brainwave stimulator.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Anybody else? Just feel free to unmute and ask a question.
I just love to know from Becca about the virtual sessions and how you're able to do that sort of energy work remotely, because I know we all need it.
Right? I get my own work done that way. So it's really just a big dive into quantum physics. And I'm certainly not a quantum physicist, but I've done enough remote sessions to know and done enough reading to understand that we're all connected energetically. It was, you know, like Stephen leading us in a collective breath that calms us all together. And so when I'm doing those calls, I do utilize Zoom if people want, maybe not after today, but the reality that we, with permission, and I always ask permission, may I connect to your energy and step in, and then I am muscle testing in that person's energies what their body would be testing on my table, like in that picture. So it's in the incredible reality that we are inextricably one, and it really shows up in distance work. And my farthest client right now is in Hawaii, and she, you know, it's just that sweet that this is available to us during this time where we're so isolated, but have never been taught a bigger, grander lesson that we are all one. So that's how it works, and I just communicate, you know, through the session what's going on, and you know what the body is revealing, and then just keeping tabs back and forth on the process for the person that's experiencing it. And it's very relaxing. I have a lot of people, even distance, fall asleep, and so at the end I'm like, hey, you're done. So if there is a gentler modality of healing, you know, similar to Reiki, where you can just drop into a deep place, the system gets to reset sometimes in that deep state of parasympathetic relaxation. So does that help? It's
Sounds
deep space,
amazing.
quantum.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm going to call out Laura Cardwell. I see you hiding there. I'd love for you to just say hello and maybe tell them what you do as well, if you're up for it. If not,
I wasn't hiding. I was listening intently.
Okay, now you can you can show up. I'd love for you. She has started. So Becca and Laura started working. Becca started working with Laura at Shift, and then went out on her own. And then Laura's kind of taken a different path with quantum healing. So I'd love for you to kind of tell what you do for the folks here.
Absolutely. So first, I'm going to give a quick shout out to Becca. I had a session with her last week remotely, even though we live pretty close together. And it's really, as a healer, you guys know, probably most of you practice in some kind of way, how important it is that you have a team of people that work with you. And it was one of the first opportunities that I've really had to work with Becca, and it was divinely guided. I was told it was Becca that was going to help me move this particular thing. So, so remote work is really incredible. And it doesn't, you know, again, in that quantum world of physics, it's all entangled. It's all non-local. They'll use all sorts of words in quantum physics to explain it. But what they're really saying is that it's all one energy, and that when we tap into that collective unconscious, we can really work with energy anywhere in the universe as we know it and beyond. And so, yeah, I started off as a specialized kinesiologist and working with what we call applied neurology, which is specifically for brain pathways like ADD, anxiety, depression. My furthest client is actually in China. I see him for dementia. So again, you're working anywhere, working with anything, and doing that remotely. That's the gift of what we're beginning to understand in quantum physics, is how we can really touch. Of course, that's ancient. People have been doing that for beyond time. It's just that science is just now starting to understand it in the way that the West wants to understand it. So I've moved into doing more what I call quantum integrative wellness, which is kind of my own blend of crazy things. I stick with that basis of muscle monitoring to see what the body is telling me about that pre-programming. And then I might pull in anything from, I'm currently getting my doctorate in what's called quantum medicine through a place called Quantum University in Hawaii. And so I've learned lots of modalities through that I might pull in. And any of my specialized kinesiology modalities. So I've got probably 8 or 9 of those that I could pull in. And then just, again, it's looking at the 5 bodies of consciousness. So understanding that first we're all one energy, and then we have a supramental body that kind of has the archetypes in it. That's where the gene keys live, and all of the human design. All of that is kind of how we come into the world, and then that guides our mental processing. So understanding how that becomes our beliefs, perceptions, and how we think. And then that guides the emotion, how energy moves in our morphogenetic blueprint. That's Rupert Sheldrake's work, and the vital body, which is the chakras and meridians. And then how that is reflected in the physical body, which is the most dense energy, and the way that we get to experience the world. It was a choice. We came so that we could forget everything and relearn ourselves. It's and the process is to relearn ourselves. And so my quantum integrative practice is really about helping people relearn themselves, reconnect to themselves, and what do they need to clear out of the way or understand more deeply in order to get there.
Oh, thank you. What is your website, Laura? So you're on our Raising the Vibe site under resources, but can you tell people what your website is?
That's easy. It's lauracardwell.com.
Okay, lauracardwell.com. And you can find out more information. She's one of our business partners, business members for Raising the Vibe, and she is listed on our website. So you can find out more information about her. So thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Glad you found us and found the new Zoom link to get here. So what other questions are there? I'm gonna, while anybody else is thinking of a question, I'm gonna go ahead and jump to the social chrysalis module that I did, so you can see kind of what's up here. So let's see. I'm gonna do share screen again, if I can figure that out. Share screen here.
Rebecca, I have a question for Lauren.
Yeah.
Lauren, do you recommend with your work trying to find out if you're going to be hiring or working with somebody on a certain project, trying to find out what their personality is in order to better work with them? That makes sense, that question?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, there is a lot about human design, not only from your own perspective and how you are designed to enter relationships of all types, and also knowing each person's type that is going to potentially be on a team is incredibly helpful to know how you should be engaging with each others and making correct decisions, and the way that you come together. I do something called connection charts, where you can look, there's 4 different ways where we connect energetically according to human design. So understanding those 4 ways can help you sort of navigate areas where you'll naturally come together and see things, you know, the same way, areas where you're going to have a push and pull and need to compromise, areas where you sort of have this like natural draw to each other, that electromagnetic pull. So yeah, definitely. That's a great use of human design.
And is it an unfair question for me to ask you, do you know what Allison's design is?
I don't.
Okay. Thank
Do you know, do you know your design?
I think I do, but it's been so long. I'm the one who has to be invited. If I
So
understand,
you're a projector.
I think so.
Okay, well, we can go through that, and I can at least guide you as to how to navigate.
Mm. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, guys. So hopefully you see the screen. This is like once you've purchased the program, again, it's on sale right now for $97, originally $297, and there's probably, I don't know, Stephen, about 9 hours, something of content, I'm not sure. But it's broken out in little segments, and it's all listed here. So you've got the whole, like, between like 5 and 15 segments, and it's summarized in each of these categories. And you could just go a little bit at a time. I help you like figure out, tell the story of your life, you know, how you capture that, understanding your life cycles, whether you draw that out or if you write your own autobiography. So it kind of gives you clues into that. And then we have the more information on identity mapping, kinesiology. So again, you can just click on these, and then back to Simone, if you do purchase the program, you can just follow around to get much more in-depth information. And again, once you find out your, like, I would go ahead and pull your chart, like do the Enneagram test first, if that's calling you, and then say you're a 0.1. Dr. Dimitri goes into specifics about every point and what they're here to do. So you can follow along here, and once you watch the segment, it gives you a little check mark, so you know what you've done and what you haven't. So it's just a self-guided course. Karen McMullen did the human design here. Gene Keys, Sherry Herndon has studied these for years, and she can really go into further depth. And then Susan Shire from the Akashic Records talks about your soul's journey. There's so much more, and then I'm willing to, if you've bought the course, to have a conversation with you about any questions that you have. So anyway, wanted to share that with you. Again, it's Social Chrysalis, and then the code is in the invitation that for this Zoom call, as well as in the presentation, if you're interested in that. But I'll see if there's any last questions before we close. All right. We'll be sharing, hopefully we get this on recording. We'll be sharing this on our YouTube, tied to our ratesandthevibe.org site, probably under self-actualization tools. And hopefully we'll get to this to all the people who wanted to come, but got shut out with the new Zoom link. So thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.